Hey folks, how's it going? Hey, out here in Montana, April 13th. Can you believe it? We're getting all kinds of snow. I want to talk about wind generator maintenance and the difference between a vertical versus a horizontal axis wind generator. I got my horizontal axis wind generator. What does it take me to keep this thing maintained year after year, keep it going, keep it generating electricity? Stay tuned, we're going to talk about that right now. So I keep getting the same comment over and over again, and that is that the vertical axis wind generator is an easier wind turbine to work on. And I get that. It's lower to the ground, and intuitively you would think that that would be easier, right? And there's also a lot of fellows out there that just think I'm hating all over these vertical axis wind generators. And I'm really not. It's just that I like what works, okay? And what I believe works good for me and has worked good for me and a lot of my neighbors. And like I've said before, I am part of a community that's several thousand strong that are all off grid. And the thing of it is there must be at least 24 different individuals up here with wind generators. And I see some good examples and I see some bad examples. I have not seen a single vertical axis wind turbine up here to date. But there are a lot of very successful horizontal axis wind generators. And in particular, this one right here has been up and running for ever since that I can remember. And in fact, this particular wind generator has survived the house actually burning down. We witnessed they had a house fire and actually burned down around this wind generator, and then they've rebuilt and they're still apparently using it. Now, I've never seen them take this wind generator down. I've never seen them work on it. It's just been working flawlessly for the last 11 and a half so years that I've lived here. And the same would hold true with all of the other wind generators that I drive by and that I observe from a distance in this area, and including mine. Now, when I first put my wind generator up, I did have some issues. And they were installation issues. There was a special clamp that Istabreeze should have sold me, or at least recommended that I buy, that I found out later that they had, that was made to actually couple the wind generator with the pole. And so, but I made something. I kind of fabricated something after I kind of learned how it was supposed to work. And I guess I knew that from the beginning. I was just in a big fat hurry to get the thing up in the air, and I had to continually take it up and down several times. And if you've seen my videos, you know that these things are not that hard to take down. Yes, they are way up in the air, but all it takes for me is to take my 12-volt battery and to take it to the winch that is permanently mounted into the ground, and to actually lower that thing, and just 20 seconds is all it takes, and it's down on the ground where I can work on it. And it's a very simple mechanism that's not hard to build. I go through the whole build process, and I show you that in my videos, step by step, and how I went through all of the process, and even some of the trial and error that I encountered. The biggest problem that I've experienced is my actual pole. I had to actually do some beefing up on that and to reinforce it. So, because it actually broke at one point, and I don't even think that was the pole's fault, but it was a combination of different things. I had some very high winds coupled with some loose wires and not so good, bracing methods. And so those wires I was able to replace with some heavier duty cable, some aircraft cable, with some turnbuckles, and I also reinforced the tower itself and reinforced the attachment point where the generator was affixed to. I mean, it took some messing around, but I finally got it, and it's been up now for over a year, I would say, without having to take it down. And I would expect, if the generator is to hold up, that it will be up there for a lot longer. Now, one of the things that I did do that's helped, I think it's, the way this thing works, where there's not so much stress on the towers. I've gotten an MPPT controller. Now, I've never used one in the past. Now I've just recently have acquired one and hooked it up. And I think it's for a different wind generator, because it doesn't seem to work. It doesn't seem to let it spool up quite as much as I'd like to see it. and to generate as many amps. But what it does is it keeps it tamed down. It keeps it generating, a consistent, 5 to 10 amps when it's blowing, but it never lets it spin up too fast, and it applies the brake if it starts to overspeed. And I do appreciate that mechanism in it, because it does keep it protected. Because if any, because one thing about wind generators, especially a well-designed one, that if you've ever observed it in a windstorm, these things can really generate a lot of push against the tower, several hundred pounds of push, in high winds. And it's actually quite frightening, really, to watch, because you got this whirligig of death just singing like, some dive bomber out of World War II. And, the towers, you can tell that it's obviously under a tremendous stress. And at any minute, you think it's going to, something's going to snap and it's going to fly off of there. So to me, to have this thing controlled is a smart thing. But as far as maintenance goes, when I built my 10-footer, it actually had wooden blades. It had greasable bearings, and I would take it down once a year, and I would put some oil on the blades, and I would grease the bearings, and back up it would go. But it was a very simple, tower, the exact same type of tower that I built for mine here in Montana, where it would tilt up and down with the winch. So it was a very simple operation to tilt it up and to tilt it down. And I think the maintenance took me about an hour, and that was a homemade, version, without the benefit of fiberglass blades or the modern plastics or stuff like that. And I would imagine probably every 5 or 6 or 7 years, the blades themselves might have to actually be replaced. I don't know. I didn't live there long enough. I had it for about 3 years while I lived there, and then we moved out and I left it behind. So, I don't know how that is doing to this day. I don't know if it's survived or not, or who's taking care of it. They do require that someone look after them, and I get a lot of people citing examples of wind generator farms with wind generators that have been decommissioned. Well, they do have a lifespan, especially some of the older ones that use the transmissions to be able to transmit the wind energy into rotational speed that was fast enough to be able to turn the generator efficiently. And a lot of these models, these big commercial models, they had 300 to 1, 400, 500 to 1 gear ratios that would spin up these generators. And if you've ever seen one of those large transmissions, they are very, very big. And the amount of mileage that one of those can put on, that you can put on one of those transmissions is actually kind of amazing, the life that they get out of them. But then they're able to pull them things out of there. I've watched them, do maintenance on these larger wind generators. They've been able to pull them out and to rebuild them. Now, the reason why I think a lot of these older generators that you see have been decommissioned is simply because, they're too small. And the reason being is because the smaller a generator is, every time you double the size of a wind generator, you can gather 4 times the energy. You're upgrading your energy by a factor of 4 because of the swept area. At a 5-foot blade versus a 10-foot blade. Well, a 10-foot blade has exactly 4 times the area that a 5-foot blade has. And so it's just simple mathematics. Some of the very early wind generators only had 30, 40-foot rotors on them. And now the newer ones, they have 150 plus feet rotors. And so they develop a lot more energy, and they're a lot more cost effective. It actually makes more sense economically to refit them with blades, to do the repairs, to swap out the transmissions, but not so much with the smaller ones. And that would be true in the commercial world, because nobody's going to invest in something that's not going to have a good return. And so now we're seeing how these wind generators have kind of reached their apex. But the vertical wind generator, I've said it before and I'll say it again, to me has not really shown itself to be a viable, to be as useful as the horizontal axis wind generator. Now, I have seen some examples. There was a video that I put on one of my live streams of a fella in Ireland, I believe he was, that was successful in putting a vertical axis wind turbine, but he puts it up way up on high up on a tower, and he was making really good usable energy out of it. It appeared to me, and I don't know what the model was, or how it operated. You know, I don't know if this thing was self-starting or if it had some kind of electric motor in there or gave it a pulse to get it going or what in high winds. But nevertheless, he had good luck with it. Now, uh, what if you would have put a horizontal axis wind turbine right next to the vertical one in that same scenario? Well, that's what I would like to see, and I know that's what you guys would like to see too. And one day, I keep threatening to do this, but I am going to attempt to build a good vertical axis wind generator and try and give it a good run, a good go, and do some real testing. But so far, the testing that I've seen other people do has been lackluster at best. I do get comments from people that actually have owned, a VAWT, and their reviews aren't great. What I'm getting is that, and again, these are people that own them. I get a lot of comments from people who have never owned one, but they're very opinionated because they just know these things will work, right? I mean, intuitively, they just know that these things are going to work, but that's just it. They, in real life, they haven't really proven themselves that well to date. But I'm still like, I'm hopeful, but I'm also a realist. When I see it, I believe it, and I haven't seen a practical model yet. We're going to keep our eyes open, and I'm going to build one. We're going to see what it does side by side, do a HAWT. Who knows? I mean, keeping that thing down on the ground might save somebody a lot of infrastructure with getting it up in the air. But again, and I've said it a million times, guys, that wind on the ground is not good quality wind. Well, you can say, well, all right, well, but this VAWT can take all that bad quality wind and make good quality power out of it. Well, not so quick. I mean, that's just not that easy. I mean, yes, it's probably more usable on the ground than a VAWT in some ways, or excuse me, a HAWT, but neither one of them would be good down low on the ground. You follow what I'm saying? Both of them would benefit from being up higher up in the air, but maybe in a future video, maybe we'll do a series soon. So for me, I would say that the horizontal axis wind turbine is just not that hard to maintain. There's really not a whole lot to them. They're a very simple mechanism. There's really only two moving parts, the pivot and the rotor, and sometimes they'll have slip rings on them for more, some more of the fancier models, but I don't even see the need for slip rings. I've never had an issue with the wires twisting up in the pole. If one of you guys out there own a horizontal axis wind turbine and have that issue, maybe you can let me know, versus a VAWT that's on the ground. But my thing is, again, I'd rather own a HAWT that's up there making power than, and have a little bit of maintenance, because these things don't really take that much maintenance, versus a VAWT that's on the ground. It's really not giving me hardly anything. But that's my opinion. I don't know it all. And I certainly, like I've said before, don't really have any practical information on the VAWTs other than what I've heard you guys tell me from the comment sections. And so if you guys have had a different experience, now I'm saying experience, okay? Now, of course, we can read things, we can hear what other people tell us, but your personal experience with the VAWTs, who out there has had personal experience, please put the comments in the section below and let me know. I'll do another video and I'll retract some of my statements that I'm saying now if you've got some real world numbers that you can show me that'll prove me otherwise. But because this is a work in progress, it's not like I'm just making absolutes here and that you guys have to go along with it. So, but anyways, thanks for watching thus far. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that thumbs up if you liked the video, and we'll see you guys on the next one.